Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So every year since I've been up here, I've introduced legislation like House Bill 7645 to ban high-capacity magazines. Every year it's been held for further study, but this year I would urge this committee to really seriously consider moving forward with this legislation. The bill focuses on magazines that accept more than 10 rounds of ammo, similar to the provision in Rep. Knight's bill. And the reason is pretty simple. Looking back at past mass shootings, high-capacity magazines are the accessory of choice. They've been used by killers to shoot as many people as quickly as possible before they have to stop and reload, because historically that's been the moment, that's been the pause that has given bystanders the chance, the best opportunity to interfere and try to cut the horror and the killing short. We saw that tragically just this week with the most recent tragic story in Nashville, when the hero of the hour, James Shaw, was, by all accounts that I've seen, only able to rush the shooter in the Waffle House when he had paused to reload. Because of that break in the action, that he was able to wrestle him to the ground and get the assault weapon away, who knows how many innocent lives that were saved. But before that pause, tragically, 4 people lost their lives. Taureen Sanderlin was 29 years old. Aquila Da Silva was 23. D'Ebony Groves was 21. And Joe Perez was just 20 years old. Now, we can never say for sure how different hypothetical situations play out, but I think it's reasonable to assume that had that pause come earlier, some of those people might still be alive on this planet with us. So that is the goal of this legislation, and I think it's a goal that's worth taking seriously and considering seriously. I don't know if the legislative language before you is the perfect end product. I think all major bills go through a lot of changes during the legislative process, and I am certainly committed to working with advocates on any side, anytime, any place, to address concerns, to try to come to the best possible bill. But I don't think that's going to happen unless we really commit to taking this seriously. And so I'd urge this committee to follow the lead and the call of so many young people that we see stepping up, and step up to move this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Regenberg. Questions for the sponsor? Representative Filippi.
Thank you. Representative Regenberg, do you recall the last time that a high-capacity magazine, as you defined it, was used in the commission of a crime in the state of Rhode Island?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. Other questions for Representative Regenberg? Representative Price?
Thank you, Chairman. So, so you're talking about the Waffle House shooting. Do you know what the size capacity of the magazine that was used at the Waffle House shooting that you referenced?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Now the question is, all these magazines that are legally and lawfully owned by citizens of the state, have you talked with the enforcement about confiscation or what to do with all these magazines and compensation to law-abiding citizens?
So the legislation, I can pull out the line numbers, but it lays out a process of, after the legislation goes into effect, 120 days, and lays out a number of options for the items currently in usage in the community. Again, those are, if you have ideas for language to add there, other options that might make sure that this is moving forward in the most responsible way, would love to work with you. I'm certainly all ears. But it lays out I think, 4 different options.
Have you looked into the constitutionality of it, of confiscating something that someone has legally and lawfully purchased, and now the state is going to want to confiscate those items?
I would defer to the constitutional arguments laid out by Rep. Knight. Again, I would take issue with the framing of confiscation. Again, it lays out different options, including selling and others. But I think that Rep. Knight laid out the constitutional issues pretty clearly.
Do you know what the capacity of the magazines that were used in the Florida shooting?
I don't know that exact number. And again, what I know, I don't know the exact number from the recent Nashville story. What I know is that it was that moment when they paused to reload that James Shaw was able to interfere and resolve the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Canario, a question?
Hi, Rep. Rep, I'm going to ask you like I asked Representative Knight. Reading the definition, it refers to any magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. Is that correct?
That's right. It has a few. You can see in line 3 on page 3, but shall not be construed to include any of the following, and it includes a few options there. But in general, that's right.
Right.
Magazines that accept over 10
My
rounds.
concern with this, and this is just for discussion, so that, is that this would basically outlaw every handgun out there that most of us carry. In terms of semi-automatic handguns, which most people carry semi-automatic handguns, mine in particular can carry 12 or 14 rounds in a clip, and that's not considered, in my eyes, a high-capacity magazine, but according to this bill, it would outlaw that clip. And my concern is that not only folks such as myself, but people that go to the range, that belong to shooting clubs, it would automatically outlaw, make them illegal owners of these guns, and it's the most common handgun people carry is a semi-automatic.
Rep, I think that lines 5 through 8
That's what I'm
can answer
looking at.
some of that, but I also know that, again, our neighboring, this isn't sort of a radical new idea. Our neighboring states have passed these statutes and have moved forward.
Well, I'm just, do you know how they handle that? Do police officers carry more than 10 rounds?
Well, again, this legislation, similar to the bills that we previously talked about, says that government officers, agents, employees, members of the armed forces, peace officers
But I guess
are not
the other-
included in the ban.
I'm sorry. I guess the other part of this equation is, I'm trying to think out of the box here. So if you limit it to, say, just law enforcement can have these, that means they're going to be made, which means the bad guys will always have, the guys on the street that want to commit harm are going to have access to these things because they're being made. That's my point. So it's just something to think about, going forth.
Yeah, I think that limiting the circulation and numbers and usage over time has an impact, even if it doesn't limit it down to 0. It's going to have an impact. I think that's what a lot of the studies have shown, and that's sort of the logic behind it. But as I said, I'd love to continue the conversation if you have ideas that that maybe can address this, sharpen it up. As I said, I'm would love to work with anyone who.
I guess my point is, we're trying to fix something that's not broke. You know what I'm saying? I'm just, I don't know what Mass did, so I can't speak for Mass. I don't know, what they did, but I'm just concerned about the unintended consequences here. That's all.
And we should always be thinking about unintended consequences. I would say that when you look around this country, when you look at the number of mass shootings that use high-capacity magazines, when you look at the role that they play in taking away innocent lives like we just saw this week, I would say there's something really broken. And there are thousands and thousands of Rhode Islanders who just recently came up here to the State House to send that message. So I think there's a lot of people who feel that we do need to take action, and I hope that we'll consider it seriously.
I just wanted to bring that out to you to consider, because they are, you know, to me, it's serious unintended consequences. Thank you, Rep.
Thank you.
Perhaps Representative Regenberg, you could look into how Massachusetts and Connecticut are handling this particular issue and get back to the committee.
Yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
good.
I
Thank
would
you.
love to do that and follow up with folks.
Are there other questions for the sponsor? Representative Filippi?
Thank you. You had said that High Capacity Magazine was used in a mass shooting this week. Which one was that?
Again, I was referring to the situation in the shooting in Nashville.
At the Waffle House?
That's right.
But I'm sorry, I thought you told Representative Price you didn't know whether that was a High Capacity Magazine or not.
It was an assault weapon, and everything that I've read was that it did use a high-capacity magazine. I didn't know the exact number of rounds that were used.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, I can either try to do it right now, or I can do it today and follow up with everyone.
We can wait a while.
Okay.
We have people waiting to hear about a number of other bills and then a number of people waiting to testify. Are there other questions for Representative Regenberg? Representative Roberts?
Thank you. I'm noticing on the last page, on line number 3, it says this act would make exceptions for law enforcement and the United States Armed Forces. And being that, I guess I'm wondering why there would be exceptions for law enforcement, being that the people are supposed to be in control of government and not the reverse, because it was never intended for law enforcement or government to possess weapons that the citizens are prohibited from having themselves.
That's a perspective. That, we worked on this legislation with law enforcement. I think that, again, the goal for me in working on this is how do we do everything that we possibly can to protect our communities from the kind of mass shootings and violence that we continue to see pretty much every week across the country. And so trying to limit the access that people who might want to do some of the terrible things that we see to these weapons that allow them to shoot as many people as quickly as possible, while recognizing that law enforcement, that folks like Rep. Canario in his prior work may need those to keep our community safe. That was the idea, and that's why it's formatted that way.
Okay, I guess my question is, this sort of implies that you believe that maybe our government is an altruistic and benevolent government. Do you believe that?
Well, our government's all of us, so on our good days, that's the goal.
I don't know, but right now, there's a lot of people here fighting for their rights, and they're trying to make their voices heard loud and clear what they want, and they don't like this bill, I can tell you that.
Okay, Representative, that's comment on the bill. If you could stick to questions, please. Thank you.
I like to think
I have a
that
question, Representative Roberts.
No, that'll be it for now, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Price?
I was wondering if we could put something in this legislation to exempt law-abiding citizens from confiscation of their equipment and magazines. If they're, if someone doesn't have any violations, or, they're just a law-abiding citizen, got their stuff legally and lawfully, that they're exempt from this proposed legislation that you have.
I'd be willing to follow up with you and try to think it through. Again, the goal for this is to try to limit the numbers of these items in circulation, to try to make it harder for the folks who might want to use them in the ways that we've seen to kill innocent people as quickly as possible, to make it harder for them to access it. And if there's a way to accomplish that with your vision, I'm down to grab coffee. Let's think it through.
Okay, so confiscating from legally and lawfully owned property, would someone that legally and lawfully owns it, do you think that they should have their property confiscated because of what the illegally obtained firearms and magazines that are being used by, say, like gang members, MS-13, and people like that, that are driving up the numbers of gun shootings? Should the law-abiding citizen pay for that? Or should be exempt from that? I mean, the bad guys are going to get the guns anyway. The good guys already have the guns legally and lawfully, so this looks like that it's going to only affect the law-abiding citizen. Do you think that's the case?
No, I think there's a lot of public health research that says that's not the case. Again, I would push back against the framing of confiscation. It lays out a number of different ways for folks to follow through with the law. But I'd like us to have some positive action on this. So if there's a way that we can try to figure out a way that the sides can come together, I'm willing to have that conversation.
Thank you. It appears there are no further questions for Representative Regenberg. Thank you.